After starting the season with a big win, Denver is back on the road again in Florida to face the Jags. It's a matchup that features the #1 overall pick in Trevor Lawrence, the debut of Patrick Surtain II in the starting lineup, and plenty of historical bad blood between the two franchises. Welcome in to Broncos Weekend, everybody. I'm Matt Boyer alongside Alexis Perry and the Hall of Famer Steve Atwater, bringing the gold jacket back. I like it, Steve.
Oh, come on, man. We won last week, and I'm going to continue to wear it as long as we're winning.
And it looks good on you.
Thank you. Hey, it doesn't matter how it looks as long as we win.
Looks good.
You know, if they're going to look to do it again this week, they're going to need a huge performance from Teddy Bridgewater as we look at this week's quarterback matchup. Alexis, Bridgewater's rating was 115.7, doubled up the Giants on time of possession. Stats were incredible. What impressed you most about what Bridgewater was able to do last week?
You know, I think the list of ways that Teddy Bridgewater impressed us was a lot longer than anyone really expected it to be. But for me, I feel like it was his elusiveness that really stuck out. You know, I think back to that 4th-and-1 play during the third quarter when Xavier McKinney was unblocked. I don't know about you guys, but I was like, oh gosh, this play is absolutely over. But no, instead he stayed poised, calm, cool, collected, and he stiff-armed McKinney and made a perfect throw to Alberto Cuevunam, who of course dove for the pylon. Absolute stellar play, but he really was good just when he was out of the pocket in general. He had 19 yards on 3 scrambles, and that was just something that I wasn't really expecting in this game. And I don't even think Teddy Bridgewater was expecting it. I think he joked a few times, like maybe his moves were outdated and, you know, maybe he just got a little bit lucky, but I don't really think luck had anything to do with that. I just think maybe we were sleeping on his agility.
Yeah, I think Broncos country, if they weren't won over back then,
yeah,
they certainly are now. Steve, on the flip side, though, Trevor Lawrence made some incredible throws, but he also looked like a rookie at certain times. 3 picks, a sack. How do the Broncos now make sure that those turnovers appear again on Sunday in Jacksonville?
Now, obviously, we can't guarantee that we'll have the turnovers. We want them for sure. One thing that I can say, though, is Trevor Lawrence, when he throws the pass, a lot of his passes were high. And, you know, for defensive backs, I would say those guys, they got to keep their head on the swivel for balls being overthrown, balls being tipped. Now, I think Trevor Lawrence does have a bright future ahead of him. I think he's a great quarterback, and I'm happy that we're playing them early on in the season as opposed to when he figures it out. Because when he figures it out, they're going to be a problem.
Lawrence threw it 51 times in his debut. Some of that was due to the scoring deficit, of course, but it shows they're not going to be afraid to throw the ball. So let's take a look at a couple of the wideouts that we're going to see in this matchup. DJ Chark, the leading wideout for the Jags last week. For the Broncos, it was Jerry Jeudy, but Jerry Jeudy not going to be on the field because he's going to be on injured reserve with that high ankle sprain we saw last week. And Alexis, in steps Tim Patrick once again. TP played extremely well last week. This is a guy who's had to step in to fill the void of Cortland Sutton last year. Now with Jerry Jeudy. What's made him so consistent, though? Because the guy hasn't missed a beat.
Yeah, you know, I just love that Tim Patrick was the first to score a touchdown for this team this season. Just given what a consistent playmaker he has been, as technically the #4 guy on paper, and he's just stepped up in such a big way. We remember with Cortland Sutton out last year, he and Larry Fitzgerald were the only 2 wide receivers in the entire league who've been targeted 70 or more times and didn't have a single drop. And he's carried that in to this season. He went 4-4 against the Giants. He's just a really consistent guy, and I feel like he's maybe one of the most underrated pass catchers in the league. And while, you know, Tim Patrick is used to being in this role, it's really up to KJ Hamler. Coach Fangio said earlier this week that he's going to be the guy that's going to see the biggest change in his workload. And I know that nobody's really asking me for fantasy football advice, but, you know, I think KJ Hamler and or Tim Patrick would be 2 guys to pick up this week.
4 targets last week. You mentioned it, 4 for 4. Expect that number to go up a little bit. Steve, on the flip side with Jacksonville, DJ Chark, 12 times he was targeted against Houston. The Jags threw it, as we mentioned, 51 times. But how do you prep for a wide receiver like Chark, a guy who's big, athletic on the edge? He's going to present a problem.
Yeah, well, first off, everybody needs to know this guy is 6'4", 200 pounds. And usually when a guy is that big, they aren't super fast.
Right.
This guy runs a 4.3 40 as well.
Like you?
Got to know that. No. I've never run a 4.3 40. He's an absolute burner. He had a couple of drops last week, but we can't count on him dropping passes. They're going to go to him. They're going to feed him the ball. He's their playmaker. He averaged 13.3 yards a catch last year. So they're going to be going for him. We got to make sure we're on our P's and Q's and we have him in front of us at all times.
Disguising coverages is something that we heard a lot about this week when it comes to facing Trevor Lawrence, a rookie quarterback. It's going to be crucial for the Broncos, Vic Fangio said, to not only blitz, but also to make sure that even when they're not blitzing, that they are disguising what the Broncos are bringing. Steve, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, though, was the defense last week looked incredible as we take a look at this week's defensive matchup. Von Miller versus Josh Allen. Von looked like Von Miller, Steve. He looked like vintage Von Miller. What impressed you most about his performance, and how does that change the expectations for this defense in 2021?
Well, I'm not surprised. I pegged Von and Bradley Chubb as having 26, 27 sacks on the season.
Gonna go to 28 now?
Hey, I might. He's off to a great start there. And, you know, the thing about Von is, you know, he's going to get to the quarterback eventually. If you rush him enough times, he's going to get to the quarterback. He looks like he's in great shape. Didn't look like the ankle was bothering him at all. All the work that he had put in, that he was about to have a great season last year, I think is on full display now. And he's out there leading the guys, showing them. I heard Draymond Jones say that he beat him to the sack. He didn't beat you to the sack, but he got there first. If Draymond would have gotten there first, he would have had it. So looking for big things, continued big things out of Von.
The Jags only had one sack last week, Alexis. And it was Josh Allen's. But Denver could be without Graham Glasgow this week, was dealing with an irregular heartbeat, stayed back in New Jersey for some monitoring. Back with the team this week, but his status still very much up in the air. If Glasgow can't go, how does that affect Denver's pass protection and what they want to do along the offensive line? Yeah,
well, first things first, obviously wishing Graham all the best. This has to be a really nerve-wracking time, not really knowing what exactly is going on with him. But given what a tough guy he is, he's a really tough guy to replace in the lineup. Now, the Broncos offensive line, they did have a good game against the Giants. It wasn't great, but they were especially good when the Giants were sending extra guys, right? Teddy Bridgewater went 9 for 11 when there were 5 or more guys coming at him. So I think that that's obviously a telling sign of what the offensive line was able to do on Sunday. Now, without Graham Glasgow, it will be Netane Muti, the Fresno State product. He's in his second year here with the team, and he has only played 125 snaps in his career. That's not a ton. That's a little over 11%. So given the fact that he's a little bit inexperienced, I think it will be slightly more difficult for him this week. But I think eventually as the game goes on, he'll start to find his stride, get his legs underneath him a little bit, and hopefully that drop off from Graham Glasgow to Netane Muti won't feel quite as dramatic.
Having the veteran Bobby Massey right next to him was also probably going to help a little bit on Sunday. The Jags gave up 160 yards rushing last week. So if Denver can get that pass protection established, they could be also in for a great day running the football. Melvin Gordon, of course, having the great game last week. So hopefully that offense is firing on all cylinders. We've got to take a quick break, though, but when we come back on Broncos Weekend, we'll take a look at the history between these two teams, some battles that Steve remembers quite well, plus two of the best young Broncos are about to see huge increases in their roles. We'll tell you how Pat Surtain and KJ Hamler figure into this week's game plan. The Jacksonville Jaguars have only existed since 1995, but their history with the Broncos has seen moments of intensity since that time. Denver won the first ever meeting between the two teams in '95, a 31-23 victory in Mile High. But it was the next two meetings that would go on to define the all-time series. In the '96 playoffs, quarterback Mark Brunell and the Jags stunned the Broncos, slipping past Denver 30-27 for one of the most shocking playoff upsets in NFL postseason history. However, the next season, Denver would get revenge, meeting the Jags in the 1997 wildcard round and leaving no doubt as Terrell Davis ran for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns in a 42-17 playoff drubbing.
I love this, baby. I love this. Revenge is so sweet.
Since then, the Broncos and Jags have played sparingly, only meeting 3 times in the past decade. The last time Denver traveled to Duval County for this series, the defense made all the difference.
Big 3rd and 4 here. Bortles pass is intercepted. It's picked off by Roby, and Noah
Howard's going to catch him.
Bradley Roby's pick 6 from 51 yards out helped seal a 20-10 win for the Broncos. Denver will bring another loaded secondary to Florida this week, and you can bet the Broncos would like to see history repeat itself on Sunday. There are no shortages of great moments between these two franchises. Welcome back to Broncos Weekend, everybody. Okay, Steve, you were there at the beginning. Some good moments, some bad moments, some very good moments. So what do you remember about the games between these two franchises back when you were a player?
Well, I remember we had the best season of our life, the 1996 season. We went 13-3, and we were riding on cloud 9, and they came in here on our home turf, and they kicked our butts. And we had to marinate that on that, stew on that all off season. But fortunately, we got a chance to play them the 1997 season, and we redeemed ourselves. So we're okay now. We're good with them right now. We feel like we've even the score a little bit.
One thing I love about this matchup, Steve, is the unsung heroes, right? The Derek Lavells, the Bradley Robys. This week, due to injury, with Ronald Darby and Jerry Jeudy both being out, it's KJ Hamler's turn and Pat Surtain II's turn to make their mark on this historic rivalry.
You know, Jerry, you know, we lost a key piece to the receiving room, knowing he gonna be back soon. But, you know, that just, everybody gotta step up. You know, next man up mentality, basically.
Hit as he throws, ball will be completed to KJ Hamler.
I still can fix up little things, but, you know, first game, you know, I think I made some valuable plays. Hoping to make more this week. So just being, you know, that guy that can go in whenever somebody's down, whenever somebody needs a break, and my coach to depend on me and rely on me.
Now he's almost pulled down, stops and throws, the ball middle of the field, it's caught by Hamler. First down, Denver.
KJ just got to be KJ, and he's a special player. He's here for a reason. He's explosive, he's dynamic, he's shifty, he can catch the ball well, he runs great routes, and that's what we expect of him this week.
Browning throws a pass right side, pass is picked off. This is going to be a house call, and welcome to the NFL, Patrick Surtain.
I'm approaching like a regular week, getting out here, getting prepared, taking it day by day, you know, working hard in practice. You know, I guess, you know, it's a new opportunity for me to step in and fill in the role, so I'm going to be ready.
He's proven that he can play at the highest level with the best of them. I mean, his whole career, his whole football career, and playing in the NFL is really for him is going to be no different. He's got a great pass rush. You know, the ball is going to be having to come out fast. You know, he's got guys like Kareem and myself to be able to kind of direct traffic, make sure he's comfortable. You know, any part of him being out there, in large part, is not just on him. It's on us as a secondary, and we got to be able to make sure that we're doing all that we can to help him.
We always knew these guys were going to be major factors with the Broncos this season, and we're going to see a major increase in their roles. Steve Hamler played a little bit more than Surtain. PS2 only got a handful of snaps as an outside corner. For Surtain, Steve, how does his mentality shift from a sub-package player to now being the guy on the outside?
Well, more than anything, I think, is endurance. Just know that he's going to have to play a full game. He's going to have to be there both physically and mentally for the full game. When you're off to the sidelines, you got to be honed in, going over to your coaches, going over the plays that you just went through to make sure you got everything right. And I think he's going to be just fine. I think he's been doing that in the small time. Even with the number of plays that he played last week, he was in tune with the game, up to speed with what was going on. So I think he'll be just fine, but it's going to be a little bit of a shift.
For Hamler now, Steve, Vic Fangio said it's going to take the entire wide receiver room to make up for what was lost with Jerry Jeudy. But for Hamler, a guy who had some ups and downs, dropped the touchdown pass, but came back very nicely with a great reception from Teddy Bridgewater. How does he now, start to think about this game and what his role could be?
Well, I think kind of the same thing, just knowing that mentally he may have a little bit more responsibility because Jerry Jeudy is not there now. And KJ Hamler, first off, we got to forget about that drop pass. All great players are going to drop passes. I've seen Jerry Rice drop passes, who I think is the greatest of all time. So that's going to happen. Forget about that. Get back into the zone. We know he's a speedster. Nobody in the NFL can cover this guy in the slot with his speed and quickness, especially if they can't jam him. Be ready to do your thing and come out and let's score some points.
Only 24 snaps for Hamler last week. expect that total to go up and expect the deep balls to maybe go up as well for the Broncos. We've got to take a quick break, but when we come back on Broncos Weekend, what can Broncos country expect during Denver's first trip to Duval County since 2016? Alexis Perry is asking the tough questions of a Broncos beat writer with first-hand knowledge from his time covering the Jags. That's next. Welcome back to Broncos Weekend, everybody. Few people know the football scenes in Jacksonville and Denver better than the Denver Post's Ryan O'Halloran. Ryan spent 6 years covering the Jags in Florida, and he is sharing his unique perspective this week with our Alexis Perry.
Thanks so much, Matt. Ryan, as someone who covered the Jags for 6 years from 2012 to 2017, you obviously know the history of the team well. You still follow them closely. So what are your overall impressions of this 2021 team and how they compare to years past?
Well, I think the difference between 2021 and previous years is they got the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, for a lot of these years in Jacksonville, they were terrible. They would win 2, 3, 4 games, but they never totally bottomed out. They did last year, went 1-15. That allowed them to take Trevor Lawrence. And whenever you have the quarterback, you're losing, but you at least have hope. So I think that's the big difference between the teams I covered, excluding 2017, and this year, Trevor gives them hope, even though week 1 was a disaster.
Yeah, well, speaking of Trevor Lawrence and week 1, it wasn't quite the debut we were expecting. Yeah. Obviously, 3 touchdowns, that's great for him, but 3 interceptions as well en route to a 37-21 loss. So what can Denver's defense learn from what Houston was able to do against Jacksonville on Sunday and apply this week?
Yeah, I think it's 51 passes. Yep. If you can do that to Trevor Lawrence, he's going to throw interceptions. Let's face it, that's probably not going to happen, but if the Jaguars offense can get some momentum early, that's going to impact the game. Flip it to the other side. One thing Teddy Bridgewater and Pat Shurmur have talked about this week is fast starts. That's going to put Trevor Lawrence on his heels. Houston's defense with Lovie Smith last week, they only rushed 4 guys. Yeah. I think that's what the Broncos are going to do. Rush 4, drop 7, and try and force Lawrence into mistakes. I think he's going to throw multiple interceptions because Vic Fangio has had so much success against rookie quarterbacks, 18 wins, less than 10 losses in his play calling career.
Well, speaking of rushing 4, what are the odds that Bradley Chubb is one of those guys this week?
Well, I think they're going to give it a go. I mean, he was out there Wednesday and Thursday doing limited practice stuff. And if I'm Vic Fangio, I go to Bradley Chubb this week and say, give me 15 snaps. Give me 15 third down pass rushes. That'll get you ready for more full-time duty against the Jets. And this Jaguar offensive line is not very good. Von Miller on one side, Bradley Chubb on the other on 3rd and long, 3rd and medium. They should be able to have some success. And I think it's important for Bradley to get out there. I mean, it's been a frustrating month or so on the field and off the field.
Right.
And hey, get healthy, show the ankles right, and join Von Miller and really create some havoc for young offensive lines.
Well, after seeing what Teddy Bridgewater and this Broncos offense can do, like we saw in week 1, how do you think this Broncos offense matches up against Jacksonville's defense?
I think they match up well, and let's start with Jerry Jeudy. They lose him, but I think they have the depth there with KJ Hamler and Tim Patrick to step up, and they're going to have to step up because Jerry's not going to be back for a while. So those 2 guys, I think they're going to play a lot of 2 tight end, try and get that running game a little more efficient with Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. And, converting 3rd downs and 4th downs are great.
Yeah.
But you don't want to have to do it every week, so more efficiency on 1st and 2nd down. And this Jaguar defense has some veterans, Miles Jack, Shaq Griffin at corner, Rayshon Jenkins at safety, but they also made a lot of mistakes last week. So I think the Broncos, if they get off to a good start, they'll be able to really run their game plan and make things difficult for Jacksonville.
Who's one guy on the Jacksonville Jaguars, whether offensively or defensively, that this team really needs to hone in on and focus?
Yeah, I think it's Miles Jack, their linebacker. Okay. I covered him when he came into the league. He had a history at UCLA of knee problems. That's why he fell out of the 1st round.
Yeah.
Now he's a highly paid linebacker. He can run. I don't know if he can cover, but in the run game, he can go sideline to sideline. So I think you got to keep your eyes on him in terms of the 2nd level block. He's going to run blitz a little bit, so making sure he doesn't get in the backfield before Melvin Gordon or Javonte Williams even get the football.
Well, I know Broncos country, they're pretty high on the week 1 win, over the New York Giants. So how do they make sure that they just don't get too high and too ahead of themselves heading into this game against Jacksonville?
Yeah, I think 2 factors. First, you point at the injuries. Jeudy, Graham Glasgow at right guard, and then Ronald Darby at corner. Okay, you lose 3 guys. Veterans are going to tell, hey, other people have to step up. It's an opportunity for Pat Surtain on defense, Natane Mute at right guard, and then KJ Hamler and Tim Patrick receiver. But I think the real key for not overlooking Jaguars is Teddy Bridgewater.
Right.
He is a veteran. He got to the podium on Wednesday afternoon, and he says, We cannot let up. We cannot blink. Those were his quotes. And I think that set the tone to show the fans, hey, 1-0 is great, but it doesn't make a difference if you lose to the Jaguars and make it 1-1.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at Ryan O'Halloran, and of course, subscribe to the Denver Post to follow his coverage of the Denver Broncos. Ryan, thanks again.
Thank you.
Matt, back to you.
Thank you, Alexis. Okay, Steve, let's get to your keys to the game. What's it going to take for this team to go 2-0 on Sunday?
Well, first off, we got to make sure that Trevor Lawrence does not get his confidence against us. I know eventually he's going to get his confidence. He's going to understand that offense perfectly. But right now, we got to take advantage of it while he's early on. He doesn't really have that offense down pat. Also, I feel like guys are going to get a chance for some tip balls. We got to take advantage of those opportunities, catch those balls, catch those high passes that he throws, and take advantage of it and keep this turnover streak going.
For me, Steve, these next 2 weeks are going to be crucial, and it's got to do with Vic Fangio's record against rookie quarterbacks as we take a look at his history with the Broncos against rookie QBs. Fangio's 18-9 all-time against rookie QBs as a DC or head coach. One of the few times a rookie quarterback got the best of him, though, Steve, was against the Jags. You see Gardner Minshew there, but I think if Fangio can disguise the looks, like you mentioned, force Trevor Lawrence into some pre-snap mistakes, I think they're going to pad that turnover margin, and they will be good when the clock's hit 0 on Sunday. What do you think about that?
2-0, I love it. I love it. I love it. Love the disguising as well.
All right, that's going to do it for us today on Broncos Weekend for the Hall of Famer. Looking good, still in the gold jacket, Mr. Steve Atwater. I'm Matt Boyer. So long, Broncos country. We will see you next week.